Have you ever seen those videos on TikTok where they're like, please help me find my son Roberto Lopez? And it's like the Family Guy clips in the back. Yeah, I made one of those. And I think I am starting to gain recognition on TikTok. People on TikTok have only seen part 1 and 2. I actually made 6 parts in total. So we're gonna do a deep dive using this iceberg into the whole lore. Jonathan Lee Oswald. Jonathan Lee Oswald is the main perpetrator of the staged kidnapping of Roberto Lopez. There will be more information, but we're going to get back to that once it pops up. So for now, let's move on. Plymouth Jones. As soon as Oswald was arrested, Plymouth Jones was interrogating Oswald, and then he was shot to death with a Smith & Wesson R8 revolver. Plymouth Jones died while interrogating Oswald, and then Oswald got in his car, went to El Paso, and then everything else happened. Roberto Lopez in Benwood Park. Roberto Lopez was a vessel created by LandCorp for their FAA operation. LandCorp told Oswald to go and kidnap Roberto Lopez as a part of their FAA operation to control the media. And Benwood Park was exactly the place that they asked Jonathan Lee Oswald to be. LandCorp. LandCorp is a television broadcasting company which also just happens to be the biggest in the entire country. But as stated earlier, they don't just do television broadcasting, they actually do social experiments, and they run crazy shit on the media. Jonathan's delusions. Jonathan had a delusion of which he was sent by God to eradicate Satan's spawn, and that just so happened to be any tiny child he could come across, which is some really stupid shit if you ask me. And with the fact that he was diagnosed with schizophrenia, in part 4, he said in a suicide note that he failed God. Operation Fear Across America. Operation Fear Across America, or just FAA for short, is an operation created by LandCorp basically just to control the media for the fun of it. And Operation FAA is literally the reason why Roberto Lopez was kidnapped in the first place. Keep in mind that LandCorp isn't mentioned until part 6, which is very important. 600 other children Jonathan killed. Yeah, you heard that right. Jonathan killed 600 other children apart from Roberto Lopez. And if you're gonna say,
oh, how was Roberto Lopez dead if you gave a testimony when Jonathan was killed?
Shut the fuck up. Joanna Lopez. Joanna Lopez is Roberto Lopez's mother, and also somehow is never mentioned in any of the parts, is what you would think. Because in a later part in this iceberg, we will soon have the explanation. Splint. If you don't play Watch Dogs 2, then you probably don't know what DedSec is. But let me explain it to you for a second. It's basically like Anonymous. They take down evil government corporations, and they're basically like a hero hacking group, which is what Splint is. And now, so far, Splint has only been mentioned in the wiki and somewhat mentioned in part 6, but they play a major role in the story. FBI involvement. So, shit got so bad for Jonathan that he was actually criminally wanted by the FBI until he got arrested. So basically, that's why the FAA operation worked so goddamn well. Fallen Angel broadcast. Probably the simplest entry on here. It's literally just all of part 5. Jonathan kidnapping spree. Before LandCorp was involved with any of Jonathan's little thingies, he actually went on a small kidnapping spree in Tennessee, which is like 1/4 of the 600 children that he kidnapped. LandCorp was the reason that Jonathan died. So basically, LandCorp told Jonathan to go kill himself for the media. Roberto was cloned. Yeah, so actually, Roberto Lopez was cloned after he was kidnapped, because then Jonathan decided to kill him when LandCorp physically told him not to. And just in case anything happened to Jonathan, LandCorp gave him a state-of-the-art cloning device. Yeah, so that's the entire reason Roberto was cloned. And the real Roberto is dead. And since we're on the topic of the Lopez family, I might as well say Joanna has given up on her search entirely and just accepts the fact that her son is dead. I mean, it's literally in part 2. Family Guy is Joanna talking to the viewer. I felt like this was pretty obvious, but I added it in anyways. So Joanna is talking to the viewer through Family Guy. And this is sort of a way of communication to spread awareness about her dead son. We're not exactly sure. Even I'm not exactly sure, and I'm the goddamn creator of this series. I'm not exactly sure how Joanna got access to the TV, or got access to talk to the TV. Maybe she used like a hijacking system or some shit. I'm not sure. I don't even know what to do. RLWiki or JLOWiki. This is basically a wiki on all the characters, and it gives like a huge drop of lore. I mean, if you go to the LandCorp page, then you can see that it drops a shit ton of lore. And I will link the wiki in the description because I did make it on Scratch, but then I had to package that into an exe file and a whole lot of other bullshit. But yeah, go check it out down below. LandCorp CEO killed by Splint. Splint hired a hitman to kill the CEO, and the hitman did succeed, but LandCorp wasn't exactly finished. They hired a new CEO, which was the CEO's son, and before the CEO died, he left a letter to his son that should only be opened when he was dead and said, "Carry out Operation FAA." When, what do you know, they carried out Operation FAA. Jonathan was a vessel for LandCorp. Now, this doesn't really make sense until you actually look at it. And considering the fact that Jonathan wasn't really relevant until LandCorp stepped in with FAA, it's kind of connecting the dots. But also, Jonathan was released from a fucking prison or mental asylum in 2023, so that also wouldn't make sense. But LandCorp actually has a deep tie to Jonathan, because Jonathan was a vessel created for LandCorp, but during the process of the vessel's creation, he misformed and had all sorts of mental issues. Day of Rebirth. The Day of Rebirth is when Jonathan died and was reincarnated into another soul. So basically, he died and came back. Jonathan is not human. He's obviously not. He's a demonized vessel. VHS tapes in 2025. Well, this is a confusing thing because there aren't VHS tapes in 2025. That's not like the main source of media. The main source of media is online streaming and whatnot. But in this universe, VHS tapes are the norm. LandCorp did MK Ultra. The only reason that LandCorp is so powerful is because they have access to government files, which is why they're so easily able to control the media. Jonathan is a lost soul. If we look at this quote in part 5, we can infer that Jonathan didn't reach heaven and that he's a lost soul now. LandCorp controls the media in multiple countries. This is self-explanatory. Old LandCorp HQ explosion. So before, like, 2016, LandCorp had an old headquarters, which Splint did not like, because coincidentally, it was right next to one of their offices. So they got an inside man in the job and found out when everybody was going to be off work. And come that day, they got some dude to plant an explosive in the building, and then it just fucking imploded. Splint is actually Interpol. Interpol is a international police organization that hunts down criminals. So basically it's just the FBI. And the FBI, working on this case, decided to create a hacking group in 2016 in collaboration with Interpol called Splint. Then they left the project for a couple years, and then basically Splint was the byproduct of this whole fiasco involving Jonathan and Roberto. I hope you like my video. This is the end of the iceberg, and please have a great day. If you're not, I hope your day gets better, and bye, motherfucker!